2. Audio check 1, 2, 3. You good? Oh, please talk to me.
I can hear you, but it's really bad quality.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Test, test, test.
Yeah, it's super muffled for some reason.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Test, test, test. A little better. Testing 1, 2. Test, test, test. Can you hear that?
Yes.
Okay. Very good.
President Trujillo just texted me and said she's about 5 minutes out.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Vink.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you to everyone joining us this September 23rd. Let us call the meeting to order at 6:16. My apologies. Let us be reminded today and always, in partnerships with tribes who called Phoenix their home first, we acknowledge and respect the land our schools are built on. We commit to being a strong partner with any and all tribal nations who entrust their children to our schools. We are grateful and honored to be partners. Ms. Miriam, can we have roll call, please?
Jessica Bueno,
Presente.
Carmen Trujillo,
Here.
Reggie Carrillo. Here. Dr. Alicia Link.
Present.
Thank you. Just as a note, we do have a quorum, so we will proceed. Who's doing our Pledge of Allegiance this evening?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd like to ask Ms. Sylvia Bernal, principal of Garfield School, to lead us in the pledge.
All right, welcome, welcome. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Sylvia. Moving forward, that'll take us to item number 4, adoption of the agenda. May I have a motion to adopt the agenda as presented? Jessica Bueno, so moved.
Reggie Carrillo, second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Miriam, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Jessica Bueno,
Yes.
Carmen Trujillo,
Yes.
Reggie Carrillo. Yes. Alicia Link.
Yes.
Thank you. With 4 in favor, the motion carries, and we'll move on to item A5, awards and recognition. Dr. Weeks.
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the governing board, I would, for the benefit of those at home watching us on Zoom, just like to acknowledge we have a very handsome audience this evening here in the governing boardroom. I would say there's lots of smiling faces, but everybody's masked up. I can't really tell. I would like to bring up Dr. Vic Diaz as we celebrate our Star Award winner. Star is special thanks and recognition, and we have 2 Star Award winners this evening. Governing board members, if you'd like to join me down on the floor, that would be appropriate. Thank you.
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Weeks, member of our Phoenix One community, it is me great honor to recognize our Star Award winners for the month of August. Our first, unfortunately, cannot be with us today. He told me that he had a family commitment. But our first Star Award winner from our transportation department and plant services is Ryan Statham, our routing technician. Ryan works diligently to overcome any obstacles in transportation to make sure our students receive 100% from the department. Ryan exudes excellence and dedication by always doing everything he can to ensure our routes are safe for our students and drivers. His friendliness and customer service really shine when it comes to communicating with parents and staff. He's always willing to help his team and make an impact that positively impacts transportation day in and day out. And Ryan is one of the main reasons we're successful as a team and we make an impact that positively, we are grateful for his commitment to our staff and our students. The 3 words that his department used to describe him were loyal, dedicated, and caring. So many congratulations to Ryan in the plant services department. Our next Star Award winner is Ms. Janae Watts, our Child Nutrition Coordinator in our Child Nutrition Department. Janae exhibits a can-do spirit that leads the department forward during unpredictable times of the pandemic. She truly cares about the people around her and wants the best for everyone. And some of the many words her department used to describe her were decisive, exuberant, resilient, fun, kind, and understanding. I would also add that you can't go very far in our district without seeing Janae's fingerprints on some of the most proudest projects we have, not just in child nutrition, but the rest of the department. As I shared with somebody today, I wish we had 100 Janaes. So many congratulations, Janae Watts, our Star Award winner for the month of August.
Thank you, members of the governing board. Thank you, Janae. Thank you, Ryan. We have a wonderful family here at Phoenix Elementary, and we're very proud of the work that happens in and around our district. So very much appreciated, everyone. To the governing board member surprise, there is a sheet on at your station. And I'm asking you again to help me celebrate parts of the district. And so there's names by section. So I do appreciate you in advance helping me celebrate our district celebrations this evening. Mr. Heel, would you kick us off, please?
I will. Thank you, Dr. Weeks. The feeling is very mutual, just to echo your comments. So our first one is the week of September 12th through the 18th was National Arts and Education Week. This week is designed to celebrate the arts and support equitable access to the arts for all students. Here in Phoenix Elementary, we celebrate the arts all year long through the emphasis of our art program, music, and band. In addition, Herrera School for the Arts and Dual Language is a signature school devoted to the fine arts. Thank you to all our fine arts teachers for bringing the arts to life in our classrooms and exposing our students to arts education.
Congratulations to Faith North Early Childhood Center for receiving a $5,000 donation from the Arizona Diamondbacks $100,000 School Challenge Program. On September 7th, the Faith North team was honored and received their award on the field prior to the Diamondbacks game. The funding is being used to create an outdoor classroom, dramatic play area, a sensory garden, and a new play structure and adaptive swing.
A special shout out to Bethune and Dunbar schools for having 100% of their students return their free and reduced price food application. The free and reduced price applications are incredibly important to the district as it helps us determine funding for our schools and programs. For those families who are listening, if you have not yet turned in your applications, it is not too late. Please complete the applications and turn them into your child's schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carrillo. Across our district, staff is working incredibly hard. That's true. We just mentioned that, and we just celebrated that. Tonight, however, we want to highlight the hard work of our Human Resources Department. The HR team not only manages the hiring of teachers and staff, health and wellness for all employees, employee benefits, the hiring of substitutes, but for the last year, they have overseen COVID-19 protocols throughout the district. From tracking the number of cases to managing quarantines, overseeing COVID protocols, and so much more, handling our COVID cases and communication alone has become more than a full-time job. But our HR team manages to do it all. And we want to say thank you to Dr. Vic Diaz and his entire HR team. You've done an amazing job and you continue to help make our district a place where people want to come and work. Thank you to the HR team.
The COVID pool testing is underway and has, for the most part, going well for the on most of the sites. We are in the third week of doing this, and it gets better every single week. The district partners with the Maricopa County Department of Public Health, pool testing providers, and unfortunately, they've had a shortage of staff in the first few weeks, and it causes a little bit some hiccups in where they're not showing up in some of the sites. But again, that process is getting better every week, and so more and more they're showing up and conducting testing. As a result, during the first week of September 13th, 4 schools were unable to conduct the pool testing. We are continuing to work with the county health department on this issue. We are, however, seeing an increase in the number of consent forms because of great work of our schools and teachers are doing with their outreach to families. During the week of September 13th, we had total consents of 1,365, made up of 1,053 students and 165 staff. We also had tested 882, made up of 759 students and 123 staff. I also like to recognize a few staff members of the network. Jen is here. She helped coordinate this entire process, and also I'd like to thank the staff as well and the schools. It's something that it's taken some time for them, but it's also important for the students and the families to go through this process. And so the principals and all staff at the schools, should be commended for taking this on. And again, I want to also recognize Annette for getting this process going. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Quintana. Thank you, members of the board. And I think somewhere in this particular celebration is that the total tested number of students was 882, but the number of positive test results for this week was 0. Is that right? Yes. Mr. Quintana, how about that for a celebration? All right. Madam Chair, if it's okay with you, I will just roll into my superintendent's report. It's a little blank because I'm doing a little bit of ad-libbing this evening.
Perfect. That was my thought. Thank you.
So, governing board members, you receive your Monday reports, and so you're in the know. And I'm not a walking dictionary today of all the students and staff who are under quarantine, but at the same time, I want the community to know that we do an excellent job of contact tracing and communicating to the folks who are affected in and around this nasty virus. But you have seen the COVID numbers that were sent out to you today. And I would say the numbers ebb and flow a little bit, but we're fairly flat in terms of case rates and percent positivity. We're going to continue to keep an eye on that. The celebration is the fact that we never let that go. And we will continue to post that information for the benefit of ourselves and the community going forward. So there's that. The next item I have for the governing board and the community this evening is we are planning for the district's 150th celebration, and that planning is well underway. And tonight I have a little pop quiz. Who can tell me what a 150th anniversary or celebration is called? So we're going to answer the question. 150th anniversary is called a.
And I probably won't pronounce this right, but it's cinquential, something like that.
You said it absolutely perfectly. That's exactly what it's called. It's a big long word for 150th. And so, Ms. Bueno, you are You were part of that team. We appreciate you being part of that team. And this is a huge celebration, not only for Phoenix Elementary, but for public education in and around the state. Phoenix Elementary being cornerstone of public education here in Arizona. And I'm going to go to my grave saying that. We are excited to celebrate our, whatever Ms. Bueno said this year. And we have a group of individuals who've been meeting and working hard to brainstorm and plan events to celebrate this historic milestone. So if you are out there and you are watching this meeting, we are looking for you. This is more of a commercial to recruit than anything else. So come on and help us celebrate our 150th. The team has met with administrators, brainstorm ideas to involve staff, students, families, community members, and schools in the celebration. We plan to kick off our 150th on or near November 27th. And why is that important? Because that is the actual date when the first lessons began back on November 27th, 1871. How about that? And no, I wasn't there then, just in case you were wondering. Yesterday, the team met with a planning committee comprised of staff, community members, neighborhood associations, representatives of historic agencies, a graphic designer, and others. The group brainstormed themes for the celebration, provided feedback on ideas to celebrate the anniversary, as well as provided input for a 150th logo that will be used to market the special occasion. The committee is looking at how to incorporate storytelling from across each of the decades, how we can highlight individuals who have significantly contributed to the success of the district, and how we can engage our entire community to celebrate the whole of public education. If you have a favorite story, historical pictures or documents, or if you're an alumni of our schools, we want to hear from you. You can message or send historic information to Ms. Linda Jeffries. Ms. Linda, thank you so much for everything you've already put into this, and future thanks for everything that you're going to help us do down the road. Linda is our director of marketing, or you can message us through Facebook. We'd love to hear from anyone who has a story to tell, a picture to share, or is interested in serving on our planning committee. There's a lot of conversations and excitement around this special event, and we are looking forward to launching our, should I try to say it? I should try to say it. Our sesquicentennial or thereabouts. So thank you for this. This really lands in our lap. This is a celebration for everyone in the state of Arizona. And I hope we do our very best. And I know that we're going to give it our very best effort. So thank you all in advance for everything you're going to contribute to this 150th. And with that, Madam Chair, I only have one more announcement, and that is today I spoke to, in celebration of honoring teachers, because you know we're supposed to be calling our favorite teachers and whatnot. I spoke to my Head Start teacher this afternoon, who is still teaching and learning. She began her career in 1969 in Head Start, and she told me this evening that she's enrolled in class, still committed to the babies, still teaching adults, and still fighting the good fight for early childhood. So that's my celebration, my very own Head Start teacher. How about that? And with that, Madam Chair, that concludes my report.
Well, that is a wonderful story that you just shared. I don't know what else can top that tonight. I just have a quick question in case this might fall under your report section. Do we have any community communications this evening?
Yes, we do.
Do we want to include those here, Dr. Lee?
Yes, there's 2 communications.
Since there's only 2.
Pardon?
That might be all right. What do you think?
Okay. First one. Good evening, members of the board. First, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to comment and share your time. I am Ann Ferrari, an educator and representative from Copper State Academy Charter High School. We are requesting to share our learning opportunities with prospective 9th grade students and their families with the Phoenix Elementary School District community. Copper State Academy is a small neighborhood charter high school located at 1212 West Camelback Road. Copper State Academy provides a rigorous college prep core curriculum along with specialized business and design electives that are engaging and relevant to the 21st century workplace. Students will build a knowledge base that prepares them for life choices as post-secondary students, consumers, employees, or business owners. In addition to sharing our learning opportunities with students, we are also inviting community leaders and small business owners to provide structured and vetted real-world learning experiences for our students. Guest speaking, job shadowing, volunteering, demonstrations. A successful and meaningful education is composed of permitting parent and student choice input by community members and real-world application of knowledge and skills acquired by students. For these reasons, I would like to thank you again for providing the opportunity for Copper State Academy to share its academic invitation to prospective families and community members. Second communication from Ms. Buckner, Sonia Buckner. I have been with Phoenix District 1 for over 5 years. I have 5 children who are currently attending Capital Elementary School. I understand that COVID is not going to go away, and I find it very irritating that District 1 doesn't have a better solution for the COVID pandemic. My kids stayed home for 3 weeks less than a month ago due to us being exposed. Then I finally got them back to school, and now they were exposed again at school. I am a working mother who needs to provide for my family. We need to work. My children don't learn very well online, so I need them to be in school. What is the point of doing the COVID testing at school if they are being sent home the day after they get tested? How many more times are these kids going to be sent home just for being exposed? Maybe they should be sent home only if they come out positive for COVID, since they are being tested weekly. Maybe consider being tested 2 times a week and only send them home if they are positive for COVID. It would eliminate us parents from taking time off of work to pick up our children and possibly losing our jobs because some people's jobs work off a point system. Something needs to be done differently. I think only children who test positive should be sent home. If you're testing twice a week, then that should resolve the problem of the unknown. Rapid tests come out positive as well. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Marion. And just as a reminder, the board is not able to comment on community communications, but we do value the voice and the time and efforts taken to address the board. And with that, we'll move on to item C, approval of the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Jessica Bueno, so moved.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Reggie Carrillo, second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Marion, can we get a roll call vote?
Sure. Jessica Bueno,
Yes.
Carmen Trujillo,
Yes.
Reggie Carrillo,
Yes.
Dr. Lisa Dink,
Yes.
With that, the motion passes and we will approve the consent agenda, items C1 through C16. Let's see, so we'll move on to item D1. Mr. Quintana, you're up.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. Good evening, governing board members, fellow colleagues, Dr. Weeks, and community listening to or viewing our meeting this evening. The first item on this particular agenda is regarding the purchase of a system that's going to live stream the meetings here at the district. And we have Mr. Nick McGann and Ms. Linda Jeffries that are going to be presenting on this information. By the way, while we're waiting, this is an item that was also approved about 3 months ago initially, and we'll come back to the board for additional approval because we basically improved the project and the program, and so that's something that we're asking Nick and Linda to present to us tonight. The reason we're doing this, and we're hoping to get your approval on this project.
All right, good evening, welcome, guys. Good evening, President Trujillo, members of the governing board, and Dr. Weeks. When Mr. McGann and I joined the Phoenix #1 team, we began to look at ways that we can improve some of our processes and some of the areas that we oversee. And tonight, we'd like to share with you some enhancements that we are recommending to the governing board for the boardroom. So since the pandemic, we've been streaming our board meetings through Zoom. And so there are a few things that we'd like to recommend that enhances the experience for those who are viewing, but also for those who are making the presentations. As you can see, we're currently using a laptop that sometimes has a feed. We have a camera off to the side. When the board members are viewing presentations, you're viewing from the screen here. And then also when we're presenting, we now have all of the safety and security of COVID. So sometimes it makes it difficult for presenters to either see the laptop or to see the screen. So tonight, Mr. McGann is going to walk you through some of those recommended enhancements that we're proposing for the governing board.
Thank you. So these are some additions to the first proposal. So these are the additions on top of the first proposal that was already approved. And that was prior to both Linda and myself joining the team here. So these are 3 cameras, a mobile podium, operator station for the computer, monitors at each of your seats, additional wireless microphones, and the ability to cast. So I'll go into a little bit more details on the next slide with the visual. So here's a visual, kind of what and where these would be placed. So to the right there was this screen 1, that is the screen directly behind the board members. And so focusing first on the 3 cameras and their location. So the change would be, there was in the original one, 2 cameras actually just dropped down from the middle here on poles. Those would actually be then placed on each side, so on the wall. One a little farther back here, and then one directly over the shoulder of Linda here. And so those were changed to allow us to really get any great angle anywhere in the boardroom. And so what we were talking about was, how do we use this as a functional space, not just for boardrooms or board meetings, sorry, but for PD or anything that goes on in here. So if you've ever been in here during a PD where there's no one sitting at the board member area and everyone's sitting back here, if I was to be presenting and trying to do my slides, I'd have to do this, right? And so you can't really come around the podium here. So in addition to the changes of the cameras, we were recommending that this podium actually become a podium that's half the size, a little bit more of a traditional podium that you would see, and would be mobile on wheels. And so we would be able to roll it over kind of where that speaker is or where Linda's at during a board meeting and really open up this area, right? So for the audience to see directly into the board member area, but also for the cameras to get really good angles as well. And so that doesn't have to stay there though. That can be moved around, that can be placed anywhere in the boardroom. And what's great about where we place the cameras and the position of the podium that we're recommending is camera 1, which would be kind of directly over Dr. Weeks' shoulder there on the wall, as say the presenter would be Linda, as she's talking in this direction, that would be head on with that camera. So that camera would get a good angle of her speaking to the board members, almost as if she's speaking right into the camera. And vice versa, once the board members are speaking to that presenter, there would be that camera directly over her shoulder doing the same thing, because your guys' head would be directed towards her, and right over her shoulder would be that camera that we could switch back and forth. And those would all be built into presets. And so we'd just be hitting presets to move from those preset angles. But again, we'd be able to span those cameras anywhere we want in the room. And then we were going to place the one a little farther back to get additional different angles and really to get, encompass the whole boardroom if we needed to get the audience members as well. So those are that, and then the last one up there is the aqua square would be actually the operator station, which would be housed over here next to Dr. Gonzalez. And what that would be doing is replacing this setup we have over here, our makeshift setup that we have to do every time we have a board meeting, right? So there would be a permanent setup over here. And what's also great is you see there were on the previous slide where we were talking about the operator station, bullet point under it where it says iPad for the camera production. And so no one would actually have to be sitting at the operator station. We'd actually have an iPad that could be doing the production of those presets and what's being shown on the screen from an iPad from anyone sitting in the room. The camera could be utilized as backup as well. So the casting capability of the podium, imagine, say Mr. Quintana comes up and got his presentation on his laptop, you would actually just bring it up and then the person controlling the iPad would just cast that to the screen. And then when Dr. Gonzalez came up, would do the same. She would bring her laptop up and then he would just switch the casting from her computer. But if somebody didn't have a laptop or didn't have the files on it, we could always utilize that computer, the operator station, to then cast up there as well. And if there's ever any instance where that casting has any issues, we'd always have that hardwire as backup as well. And then the monitors at each of your stations would be replacing this monitor that's down here and really giving you a better visual of what's being presented. I saw board member Carrillo earlier doing, he was looking up like this as well, just to see those pictures of the HR members, right? And so this would be your own dedicated monitor right at your station, in each of your stations, so that you'd have that to see what's being presented. The wireless microphones, so it wouldn't be replacing your microphones. Your gooseneck style microphones are hardwired would stay there, but we would get 4 of those wireless. Again, this would be more for adding functionality to the room. So during a PD, if you had 4 tables out, you don't have to have somebody walking around with a microphone when somebody wanted to speak. There would be one of these at each table wirelessly, so that person at the table would just turn it on and speak. So they might have to pass it around at the table. You don't have to have somebody walking around with a microphone. That would also include 2 lapels, so clip-on style, so the presenter could actually still walk around, but keep their hands free as well. And then again, 2 of the traditional handheld, just for somebody who likes to hold that microphone, but have it wireless as well. And then the last one is that point of the casting that I had spoken about, which allows the mobility of the podium because you wouldn't have any wires on it. You wouldn't have any hardwired so that you can actually, move it anywhere in the room, like I had said, and still be able to do all of what we're doing today. Presenting, casting, all of that, presenting to the board from the casting part. So that concludes the actual additions. The next slide is showing what those additions would cost. So this is the total project coming in at $97,275.98. The last item is the optional item, and that's one more addition that I'll speak about. And so that would actually add another $5,689, is to take care of these wires that are in front right here, more of the safety hazard, but also for looks. We have people coming up and down and could step on them, trip, but break the wires as well. And so we looked at actually getting them rerouted, but that was not a possibility with our current construction of everything else. So the next best option that we have is really having them build a custom raceway, they call it concealment, and it would just cover it up and protect it with a rail. And so just imagine, like a nice hard case that just goes around all of the wires with metal railing to help protect it from getting stepped on, kicked, and damaging the wires. And so what we're asking is for the 2-step approval for the main project, and if you think that the additional covering up and concealing those wires would be needed as well. So that's the end of that presentation. Do we have any questions at this time?
Yes, I do have a question. What is the difference in price of what we approved earlier this year?
So it comes in at $30,000 additional. And not all of that is the actual additions. They had told us as well is that just from proposal time 1 to 2, all the hardware pricing is going up as well. So even if we did not move forward with any of the additions, it would still be an increase from the proposed approved amount from the first time, just due to the fact that the hardware is actually increasing as well.
And do we have a warranty on our hardware?
I would have to look into that a little bit more. I'm sure there's the actual built-in, the full quote is provided in board docs. We can review that and I can get that back to you.
And I see there's a labor total, so I'm assuming we're paying for an outside company to come in
Yes,
and do everything.
yes.
Okay. And then my last is a comment. I was part of a citizens panel a couple weeks ago for Legislative District 30, and we hosted our panel over at Alhambra School Board. And so I got to actually sit in Alhambra's school board room. And so they do have the monitors. So I do see the benefit of having the monitors, and I think it's really useful, especially since we won't have access to view on this screen in front of us. So I do at first, because my first thought was, oh, it's going to be too bulky, like, you know, all this space right here. But I actually felt pretty comfortable when I was at Alhambra having that screen available. So I agree. So thank you so much.
Oh, yeah, of course. And in that screen will be able to move. It won't be a hard set on your position. So if you have your laptop, if you're on the left or right, you can move that to either side that you want to make more room.
Mr. Bueno, I'm reading the page 14 of the proposal in board docs. It says CCS warrants the system installation to be free of defects, workmanship, and fit for the intended purpose for a period of 1 year parts and labor. Warranty does not cover equipment or system abuse, misuse, including but not limited to operating outside of the environment, system alterations, customer alterations. So there is a warranty. Looks like it's 1 year parts and labor.
Thank you, Dr. Weeks.
So, Mr. Quintana, you do recommend that the board approve this, and I'm just wondering what the wording would be. Well, I'm sorry, is there any other questions, Dr. Quintana? You're online. Before I move forward, I just was wondering what wording we have to change if we are going to, I guess, include the hardware that we're talking about. Just want to make sure it gets worded correctly, so it doesn't seem like there's any discussion about not including that, so I just want to make sure.
You're talking about the option part?
Yeah. Is it all
Um,
inclusive? Or I just-
So if we vote, it already includes the option, yeah, because that was something, if we're voting, is that option already checked on there?
Is it already included?
Thank you.
So the optional part is not included to the 97,275. So it would be an additional 5,680 on top of that.
I'm thinking that we probably would just change the total number, 97,000 to that plus the 5,000, whatever that total is.
Maybe we could do an approval with
Total,
the option, included.
So, Mr. Quintana, what is the total? We need to know for the minutes, the total out the door price.
It is 100,003 with 210
So $103,210
and 9 cents. Sorry.
and 9 cents. Well, you have to be right. And so technically this, because the governing board has already approved and the request is not to request approval for the enhancements, this is a replacement authorization, and we need to make that clear so that we are not obligated to buying two systems. So then part of the administration recommendation is to order the CCS presentation systems using the state contract number for, what did you say, 103,000?
I'm sorry, it's 102,956 with 7 cents.
Did you get that, Mary? Replacing authorization approved at the April 22nd, 2021 governing board meeting. Monique, does that sound about right? Everybody, I want to introduce Monique Harris, our purchasing manager. Come on up, Monique. You like that, Monique? That was smooth, wasn't it? I don't know that we have any questions. I just want to confirm that our action item is correct for procurement.
Yes, that is correct. The very first thing that I noticed was that the state contract was listed. And I always am so very grateful to Nicholas because he always makes sure that the procurement is done correctly.
Glad to hear.
I'm sorry, I do have a question, that needs to come to me. So we approved this in April, and then since then, the price rose that much, and this is our new total. My thing is just, this is something I was wondering about, like, how fast can we get this installed? Because if that is a factor where it's gonna continue to increase, then I don't wanna wait another 6 or however much
Absolutely.
that was.
Yeah, so the last time I spoke with CCS on this project, they said as soon as the PO is in place, we're looking at right now about a month to get on the schedule. But again, once the PO is in place, we're locking that price in. But for getting it scheduled, we're about a month out from that point, and then 2 weeks to complete this project.
Okay, thank you, because my concern, I hope we do this fast, because I hope that not coming 6 months from now, looking at a renewal of this contract.
Do you have, sorry, Dr. Weeks, I think it's August 31st, right, on the first page of the entire quote?
Let me pull it back up.
And while Dr. Weeks is looking that up, may I ask why in April, the first PO wasn't submitted?
Yeah, so I think that was also part due to the transition from the project was basically handed off without Troy going out the door and me coming in, and then with Linda joining. And we saw the additions that needed to be happening. And we worked with the vendor back and forth all through the summer to really get it. Because also for me to learn what was already approved and having the vendors come in, show that, talk to the vendors back and forth. We did multiple meetings back and forth to make sure we had it clear set so that we had an understanding of what was actually going to be getting done. So that I trust Troy, but again, I wanted to make sure that I understood it so that way I could explain if I had any questions from you guys. Then also, Ms. Wendell, at the time, the lead time now is about a month before they get the project started. At the time, it was more like 2 or 3 months out. So even if we would have initially put the PO in place at that point, it would have been 3 months out before they start the project. And so that gave a chance for Nick and Linda to make these improvements, and then that's what they've done.
So, Mr. Cayo, I think I understand your question. On page 14 or 16 of the quote, the pricing for this proposal is valid for 14 days from August 31st. Nate, did your team confirm with CCS that they would continue to honor this price?
So I've been speaking with them because of the timing for getting onto the board meeting, that they said that they would honor for the approved one. And I told them right after tonight's meeting that if we were approved, we'd let them know. And then, but I will confirm with them tomorrow if this is approved, that it has to be the same price. And if not, then if we can work to keep it the same price, even though it's past the 14 days. But from my understanding so far is that they were okay with it because of the timing of when we would get onto the board agenda.
When was the last time you talked to them?
This week. This week, yep.
And did you get this in writing?
That part, no. But CCS has been working with us for many years and have so far, have honored everything that they've said. So I don't have any feeling that, if we approve it tonight and we go and let them know tomorrow, that there would be any issue with that.
So, Madam Chair, my recommendation to the board as a friendly amendment to what's written from the administration is that administration recommends the governing board approve the issuance of a purchase order to CCS Presentation Systems under the state contract number shown for the $102,000 and change for the purchase and installation of a video audio system to live stream governing board meetings contingent upon CCS commitment to honoring the price. So really this is for clarification, this 97,530, I'm sorry, the 102,956.07 is a price not to exceed. And Monique, you understand.
That would be my recommendation as well, because we can make it contingent, but when Nicholas talks to them tomorrow, we want that in writing as well. I'm almost positive they would do that, but I will feel more comfortable that it's in writing. And Nicholas, do you have an idea of when the completion date would be for the project?
Once they physically start, they said about 2 weeks out. But again, they said getting the time to the start date would be about a month out.
So my recommendation would be for the revision of the quote to reflect a validity date of at least 60 days for 2 months. That way we would definitely be covered.
See, I like her. She's good. Monique, tell us a little bit about yourself while you're standing up there.
Okay, well, I'm Monique Harris. I am the new procurement manager and material manager. I've been here for a month and 2 weeks, so I'm happy to be here. I would say my 12th year in procurement now. I started in charter schools, then I went to Tempe Union High School, and for the past 6 years, I've been at Tempe Elementary, and very happy to be at another elementary school district.
Well, welcome aboard, Monique.
Absolutely.
Thank you for helping us this evening.
So I'm happy to be here, and thank you for hiring me.
So with that friendly amendment, Madam Chair, I think we're fairly covered here.
So would you like me to, Mr. Carrillo was kind enough to write that out for me, or would I be okay to approve it as amended, to ask for a motion to approve as amended?
Madam Chair, I would appreciate your top cover. Thank you very much.
Sounds good. Do we have a motion to approve the issuance of purchase order to CCS Presentation Systems state contract for the $102,956.07 for the purchase and installation of a video audio system to live stream governing board meetings, contingent upon CCS's commitment to keep that price.
Thank you.
Jessica Bueno, so moved.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Reggie Carrillo, second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Miriam, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Carmen Trujillo,
Yes.
Jessica Bueno,
Yes.
Reggie Carrillo,
Yes.
Dr. Lisa Dink.
Yes.
With that, the motion passes. Thank you very much, everyone. Good job.
Just, Madam Chair, very quickly, just for the benefit of the audience, why we would go through this, this length. Number one, we are tasked with the responsibility of properly managing tax dollars. So we go through the extra step for that. So I want to thank everyone's participation in that. But we've had, during this pandemic, we have had our ups and downs with technology firms. And so we are a little bit extra cautious these days when it comes to technology, knowing the volatility in the market. So just for the benefit of the audience, we have a prudent board, a fiscally responsible board who is well aware of the volatility in the technology environment. So I want to recognize our board members for really being guardians of our resources and our contracting. So thank you. And then thank you all for your fine presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Weeks. Moving on, we will hear from, I guess, Mr. Quintana again regarding item D2, Playworks for Garfield and Emerson, Bethune, Capital and Herrera.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. This is an agreement with Payworks that Dr. Gonzalez is going to present and discuss.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, superintendent, and members of the community. This is a renewal agreement with a program we have had in the district since 2012. The agreement is for $49,600 to provide services to support our students during recess time. There are two different models. There's a team up model and a pro model. The team up model pairs a consultant from Playworks with our schools, working at recess time with students to help empower them to become leaders so that they are learning how to resolve conflicts at recess and to organize their peers in productive play. The pro model takes that a little bit further. Once you've established team up, you start to identify mentors who can then support the program and continue the program in a more robust way. Are there any questions about the renewal?
So this is something that we already had in process?
Yes, we've had this program in our district since 2012, 2013.
Dr. Gonzalez, do you know what other schools? Was it these same schools or different ones?
We have served, in addition to the schools that are on this current agreement, we've also served Dunbar, Lowell, and Whittier.
May I ask what we do with the data that comes in off of this plan? Looking at the contract, there's a lot of data collected, and I'm just wondering if that might be used in future proposals so that we know what has gone on already before we approve another, the rest of the campuses.
Yes, we were able to collect the data that had been presented before, and I can include that in a board update to you on Monday. But the data helps to make sure that we are getting a positive benefit for our students. And I did have Dr. Ailshire grab some of the data that had been collected before. We have personal testimonials from students and from parents. One that says, I have a student who has really benefited from the junior coach program. He had troubles at home and the program has helped him to be developed as a leader in a positive way. Another one says, I've seen positive growth from our junior coaches, especially in leadership roles. Another says students are more engaged at recess and are willing to work together. And an increased use of non-aggressive conflict resolution, for example, rock, paper, scissors. So those are some of the examples. But if we had that fancy casting system, I could cast some of the infographics that we get in terms of the data. So now that you've approved that, next time we'll be able to cast some of these reports for you all to see.
I love it. We can all practice for our TED Talks. My other question is, I noticed, well, I have a couple, and this doesn't have to be, one question by one, but what does that look like as far as, let me go back. So I noticed in here, it says that they're under the jurisdiction of California. So I just wonder what that looks like being here in Arizona, and if our, fingerprint clearance cards and all that stuff still applies, and how we make sure that it is all in place before new people come onto campuses. So even though this is a renewal contract, it does go through our legal before it comes to our governing board. They do still have to follow the rules of Arizona, even though they are a jurisdiction from California. So they have to follow our fingerprint clearance rules as well.
And what does that look like as far as making sure that's in place? Does Playworks provide that information to us, or is that something we collect before, to give them or contractor badges or something?
So it does follow the same rules and procedures that we have for other vendors who work on our campuses. So they have to provide the fingerprint clearance to us beforehand. And then any of the employees, we have to have that documentation before they can come onto the campuses.
How likely are we expecting visitors to accompany any of these teachers or staff that work for Playworks?
There shouldn't be visitors in the current model. They do also have to follow our health mitigation procedures. So we aren't expecting that there are any visitors. They all have to be fingerprint clearance employees of Playworks who are coming to work with us in a supervised fashion.
I just noticed that it did mention in there, but that might have been part of terms and conditions, I suppose. Last question is, it does reference an invoice at the back, and the last page doesn't really have any dates. So I'm just wondering how that will work going forward. If, I guess my question should be, are we prepaying for services, or will services be done after they've been carried out?
I'm not certain about the terms of billing. That would be something that Mr. Quintana would be able to respond for us.
Sorry, my only concern is just that there is language in there that says in case they don't have any funding, the contract won't go forward if they don't have funding on their end. So I'm just, if the contract doesn't move forward and we still pay them in advance, I just wonder what that looks like.
Yeah, according to the agreement, they're gonna bill us for the services, so we're not gonna pay them upfront. So that they are gonna bill us, I'm not sure if it's monthly, but it will be after the fact, not prior to the services.
Okay, that makes me feel better. Just extra language in there, and we don't know what's going on with COVID, so you never know. But those are all my questions. Anybody else?
I do have some questions. Am I correct to assume that the recess coach and recess team are individuals that are interacting with our students?
The recess coach comes 1 week a month and spends a week out at recess with the students, and they're supervised by our school staff. So they're watching how the students interact, identifying who are those natural leaders on the field and who are the kids that other students tend to gravitate to. And those are the students that they then groom to become a coach, a leader. And so they teach them how to mediate conflict, how to stand up as a leader in a positive and impactful way.
Thank you. And then, so I think what I'm trying to understand too is, do we have access to the demographics of those individuals that will be interacting with our students?
I don't know that information. I'm sure if we request that, we can get that.
I would appreciate that, because I think while we're working on our equity plan and to make sure that equity is always on the forefront of our actions, is I would like to understand better who our kids are being looking up to and who the influence is coming from. So if we can please get that information, I would appreciate that.
Thank you, yes.
Thank you, Ms. Funnell. Great point. Dr. Vink, do you have any questions before we move on?
No, I appreciate your question, Ms. Bueno. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Vink. Missing you here today. I hope to see you at our next meeting. With that, team, do we have a motion to approve the
Playworks. The agreement between Playworks and Garfield and Emerson, Bethune, Capital, Hurd, and Herrera per administration's recommendation.
Jessica Bueno, so moved.
Thank you.
Reggie Cadillo, second.
Thank you very much. Ms. Mayor, can we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Carmen Trujillo,
Yes.
Jessica Bueno,
Yes.
Reggie Carrillo,
Yes.
Dr. Lucia Baker.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Mayor. My apologies. I keep saying roll call, but roll call vote. With that, the motion does pass. So great news for our schools. I'm excited. And with that, Dr. Weeks, do you have anything for item E? It's blank, but I'm not sure if we're ad-libbing.
No, but I think we probably ought to do D3.
Oh, my apologies. I just took that attachment out, so I did. Sorry about that, Mr. Quintana. With that, we will move to item D3, our annual financial report.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. This time we're going to be presenting information regarding the annual financial report, which is typically called AFR. And this for the fiscal year of 2020, 2021, which runs from July 1st to June 30th of the past year. And in the board packet, we provided the full AFR for your reading pleasure. As you can see, it's a pretty lengthy report. But we wanted to be able to provide you some summaries of that information that's on the report that we feel is more pertinent for the board to understand, to know. And also, obviously, answer questions you may have about any information on the report or the information we have this evening. We have Mr. Damon Norris, our Director of Finance and Budgeting, that's going to be presenting the information. And we will all be available to answer any questions you might have.
Good evening, Madam President, Board, Dr. Weeks, and the community. Thanks for having me up here tonight. Want to go through the financials with you and kind of explain what the AFR is for, what it does, and why we have to do it. And then towards the end, open it up to any questions that you guys may have. So I'll try to make this as painless as possible.
Thank you. Mr. Norris, can you check to see if your mic is on?
Test, can you hear me?
Perfect.
I'll lean over for you, sorry. So the background information on the annual financial report, the AFR is a report that does recap the district's revenues, expenses for the fiscal year. So it's going from July to June. The report for the 2020-2021 fiscal year is July 2020 through June 2021. This report is due every year to the Department of Education by October 15th every year, unless it falls on a weekend and may move that date. This will outline revenues and expenses and the funding sources. So as you can see, it will summarize maintenance and operations, or also referred to as M&O. It will summarize federal projects, which is going to be your title funds, IDA, most of your grants, if you will, and Medicaid. It will summarize capital outlay, which is your capital overrides, bond building, which is a bond override, classroom site funds, are also known as Prop 301 funds. And it recaps revenues and expenses categories, as we'll go through here in a second, for salaries and related expenses, administration, instruction, special ed, and other categories, as well as your capital and what I'll call major expenses. The timeline for developing an AFR, which you guys may or may not know, is a pretty lengthy timeline. Closing the books starts in July, right after the end of the year. We go through a period where we have to take care of all encumbrances, which are what we planned to spend but may not have already spent. Making sure we can receive all the invoices, confirm all the revenues, confirm all the expenses. We do a lot of journal entries of making sure the funds are in the correct place and that they are correct. And then we do an independent audit, which typically starts in September. They come for pre-work, or what they call pre-work, and gather information, and then join us again in November for a financial audit at that time, or a final audit at that time. Recap and confirm revenues and expenses. So this will confirm and clear all purchase orders. So if we had a purchase order that was open and we didn't use it for for example, for some reason we didn't need that purchase order, this will close that purchase order out and free up those funds so that we can either roll them into the new year or make sure that they're applied to where they need to be applied. It'll review and pay accounts payable invoices and confirm all revenues and accounts balances, which is fairly important that we know that all the revenues and account balances are correct at the end of the year. AFR forms, the Auditor General develops a new form every year. These forms typically roll out early on in the season. The past 2 years, unfortunately, they've been doing some updates to the AFR form and to the formula, so they have rolled out rather late in the season and have caused us to have to do updates late in the season as well. The AG will make changes and updates and corrections as they see fit between the time that they release the form and the time that the form is due. And then the final forms may not be available until late September or early October, which makes preparing the AFR in some years a very time critical rush process to get everything into it on time. All right, now the big numbers. So before you is what our final year end results were, stops ending on June 30th. Because of Zoom, let me pull up my printed copy real quick so I can see the whole picture here. So for PSD this year, we're going to have a surplus going into next year or going into this year since we're already here. $882,447,000. And I apologize for my typo in the bottom there. This is when you take the revenues minus your expenditures, which I know sounds pretty elementary, but sometimes I want to make sure that everybody understands what I'm getting at. So that is money that we can take into us, take over and roll over into next year, which helps budgets for future years and certainly helps us out. Revenue was about $3.2 million shy of what we had expected for last year, and there's quite a number of reasons for that. Some of the big reasons, as we've talked about in here, are COVID and other things that didn't happen, so funding didn't come through for them. We did have lower than expected costs due to COVID, which is good news. For example, we didn't run pier for most of the year. We had crossing guards, for example. That's a good example of people that were not able to fulfill the job at the time. So we either found other options to do, or that was a cost savings in some cases as well, which all helped to lower expenses to cover that $3.2 million what I'll call budget shortfall that we were able to cover with that. In addition to lower expenses, we had ESSER that came through, as you guys know and have seen. We had ESSER 1, 2, and 3, and some of those ESSER funds were able to take some of the expenses from our normal budget and put them into ESSER funds, so they freed up other funds to cover that $3.2 million shortfall. This right here is a chart of where our revenues budgeted and actual expenses by fund. And as you can see on here, we always talk about M&O, and the reason why we always talk about M&O, as you can see, is it's one of the largest buckets that we deal with, which is the far left side of my screen for me. And then also federal projects is the next largest bucket that we deal with. M&O consists of funding for regular education, for special education, pupil transportation, desegregation funding, and then to follow on desegregation funding. This funding is currently providing our district-wide peer programs, special programs, as well as funding most of Magnet and Shaw schools at this time, currently going forward. The second largest source of revenue right now is federal programs. I shouldn't say right now because it'll always be, which consists of all your title funding. So Title 1, 2, 3, everything that goes into the different titles, IDEA, Medicaid, E-rate, and ESSER 1, 2, and 3. This next chart is your expenditures by object. And I wanted to break this down for you guys to kind of show you how we spend the money that we have. And this is going to be the M&O. So this is not all title funds, all ESSER funds. This is just purely the M&O side of things. Salary and benefits account for $42 million of the budget. That's about 81% of the M&O budget. Benefits alone account for 22% of that. So we spend a lot of time and money in our salaries and benefits. And that's what we spend a lot of our M&O funding on as well. Can everybody see the eye test? Because that's exactly what this is. So, and I won't go through all of these numbers. I can answer questions. This was in your board update that you guys got on Monday, and hopefully it was a lot larger than this screen. This is the start of the AFR. This is what the forms look like in the AFR. To give you an idea, these are all recaps. So everything that we've done throughout the year is downloaded into a file and segregated into different buckets. And this is the summary of those. If you would like a bigger version, I can certainly send you a bigger version that you can zoom in on if the board update was not adequate enough. But this will break out your programs for regular education, special education, pupil transportation, desegregation budget. Those are all, and I can see them on the screen, but those are all the first four lines where it'll show you the budgeted and then the actual expenditures on these. Apologize if they were so team time. Another eye chart too. This is the one for 2020 vision. This is going to be your summary of federal projects. Your summary of federal projects is literally going to be everything from ESA to title funding to IDEA. This one will show you what the beginning balance is, which is what we came into. In this case, if you see a negative number, it's not always a bad thing because we are waiting on reimbursements to come through. And so that money is coming, it just hadn't been booked into the account at the present time. And this one will take you through all the way through to the ending balance and give you a line by line breakout of every single federal program that we currently participate in. With that, if you guys have any questions, and I apologize again for the eye charts after seeing it up here, but if you have any questions, I can certainly make an answer for you guys.
I have a question, regarding the DSEG funding. I know it's a whole beast in itself, but can you just briefly explain what is DSEG funding, desegregation funding, and why it goes to Magnet and Shaw School? The Shaw School?
Yes, and I'm going to draw off my local historian, Dr. Weeks, a little bit, because I'm newer to desegregation funding, so I want him to kind of briefly explain the history of it, because he does it much better than I. If I can put you on the spot, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Mr. Curiano, I know you want to take a deeper dive into desegregation funding, but at a very high level, the district receives $11,151,000 annually for desegregation funding. That's broken down between M&O and capital dollars. So the combined total is the $11,151. Prior to 2009, it was a variable figure. In 2009, it was frozen legislatively. And so the number will never change until there's major legislation that would either revoke the funds or blend them into a different fund, which is things that you hear about from the legislature from time to time. Desegregation is a local levy fund. It was mandated by the courts from the Office of Civil Rights around 1974. And at the time, several school districts in and around the state, Phoenix Union, Tucson Unified, I believe Tempe, Phoenix Elementary, and some rural districts were also cited by the Office of Civil Rights for not fulfilling their obligations to their communities. There was too much, to Ms. Bueno's point regarding demographics, there was a buildup of particular races at particular schools, and there was this federal action then took place against these various school districts. It was at a time in the city of Phoenix when there was what we call white flight, or when it was before the 10 came through, but it was a period of reconstruction in the city, in the area, right? So in fact, I believe Superintendent Rodriguez was superintendent at the time, kind of gives you an idea of about the ballpark of when this activity took place. And so the courts mandated this local levy to provide these school districts with desegregation fundings. And the objective to desegregation funding is just like it says, to desegregate and to integrate. So the district went through the process of kind of fighting that back in those days and kind of succumbed to that. The result is that the plan to the OCR that was approved generated what they call a not a desegregation order, but rather a desegregation letter to the district, which is a kind of a softer blow. Phoenix Union and Tucson Unified both have desegregation orders, and I believe they're both still active. The desegregation letter to the Phoenix Elementary School District came around, and then the Office of Civil Rights said that the district had fulfilled its desegregation obligation during the time of Pat Williams' superintendency. So, but we have always held true to the original desegregation agreement that we made with the Office of Civil Rights, and for that I'm very proud, right? So desegregation funding helps to support art, music, and PE in our district. It helps to support our peer program. It fully funds our magnet school. It fully funds our Shaw Montessori school. And
art programs.
the art, yeah, part of the art program over at her school. The performing arts piece. So, as you can imagine, a fund that's been frozen since 2009 continues to fulfill the obligation that was mandated a long time ago, and the increase in costs that go along with maintaining these schools and these programs is something else that I'm very proud of, because the dollars were frozen, the programs live on, the costs continue to increase, and we still remain committed. But so at a very high level, Mr. Carrillo, members of the governing board, that in a nutshell is our desegregation funding. It's a local levy. It used to be considered a second part of the secondary, or no, I'm sorry. It's always been part of the primary tax rate. And so when we have, before your arrival on the governing board, we were required to submit to the community documentation outlining our desegregation budgeted expenditures to the community, much like adjacent waste funding that would need to be put in the newspaper and all the rest of that stuff. But when it transferred from secondary to primary, we no longer had to do that. So that's kind of it. It's been a long time since the Office of Civil Rights has contacted us. However, if they do, they would find a nice clean house here.
Thank you, Dr. Weeks. I appreciate it. Mr. Kriegel, I know you guys are looking for a deep dive, or you're looking for a deep dive in this, and this is something that Dr. Weeks and Mr. Quintana and I have all heard and have been talking about this past week of putting something together for you guys, so that you can look forward to that coming here in the next couple months, so that we can give you a deep dive into it and explain where everything's at, why everything's there, and listen to your feedback and try to use that to steer it forward.
Thank you, Dr. Weeks. That was beautifully said. On just looking at our history, where we've been and where we're going, where we're at, and our equity plan plays into that. But I mean, that was a deep dive, more than I expected, just in brevity. But thank you. I will look forward to that presentation going in the future. Thank you.
Mr. Correa, I will say that Phoenix Elementary does a much better job in adhering to our commitment to our community through desegregation dollars than some of the other districts who receive desegregation funds. Sometimes they'll show up in the newspaper, right? And we don't, and we're very proud of that fact.
I do have a question about if you can elaborate more on the independent audit.
Yes, so the independent audit, so we are required by the state to do an audit of our financials every year. And what happens with that is we will hire a firm or solicit for a firm and have them come in, and we've been using the same firm for at least the last 3 years that I'm aware They come in, they tear apart everything in the system. They look through everything. They ask us for backup or the whys of what we did. So, for example, if we did a journal entry, but we don't have the backup information attached to it in the file, they'll ask us why we did it. At the end of the day, between September and this year, they actually came in earlier, so I want to correct myself with September. They're actually here prior to my arrival in July to do some of the pre-work. So they came in and asked for all kinds of files to take a look at. They've been looking at those for the past few months. In November, they're going to be back here and finish the audit, where we'll talk to people and ask them about fraud, if they're knowing if there's any fraud going on. Ask questions like, please explain to us what your thought process was on this, because we do have to adhere to the USFRs and we do have to adhere to state laws of where things are supposed to be booked and how they're supposed to be handled. And so they will make sure that not only is finance correct, but that other departments that work with money in other areas are correct as well. And they will issue a report at the end of that, which we'll bring to you guys. And you guys actually automatically get a copy, but we'll bring you a copy of it to you guys and present to the board any findings that they have had, which are some can be serious or minor ones, like you need to make sure you staple this to that type things, or you need to change this policy or this process, which then sometimes involves board action to change a policy or change a procedure that we're doing. And then that is sent off to the Auditor General's office, which is reviewed by the state. Did I answer that correctly?
Yes.
Correctly before?
Yes, thank you. And how much does that typically cost us?
And I apologize, I don't have the fact and figure off my head, but Dr. Weeks does.
$32,000 to $34,000.
Which comparatively is a lot cheaper than other school districts by far. So it's always nice to be able to save a little money, but we do get reimbursed for that money the next year by the state as well.
Thank you. And then, so is the independent audit only on the annual financial report?
No, ma'am, the annual financial report is one of probably 10,000 things that they test. So they're gonna go through our procurement files, all of our POs. They'll take samples from our POs and random samples and make sure everything that Ms. Harris is doing is correct, or that we have all the proper procedures in place for that. They're also gonna look at our attendance files and make sure that we're doing our student attendance correctly. Which is where a lot of schools often get in trouble because somebody will forget to check something and they'll find something there, which is a quick fix, obviously, changing the procedure. They're also going to look at things, in some cases, curriculum, to make sure that what we say we are teaching in the classroom, we're teaching in the classroom. To earlier comments about fingerprint clearance card, they're going to look for fingerprint clearance cards. They're going to look for all the background checks that we say we're supposed to have. If it's a vendor, for example, I can't remember, Playworks, I think is that place. They could pull that file and say, show me the fingerprint clearance cards of all the people that come on campus. And they double check everything that we're doing. So it's a way to, in my opinion, it's a way to get a nice pat on the back because we're doing a good job. But it's also a great way for somebody from outside to come in and see that we're following all the rules and doing everything correct, or finding something that we need to change.
Great, thank you for all that thorough information. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
My wheels are spinning, so I don't have any questions. Mr. Carrillo asked the question I did, but he asked it way better than I did. So if I don't hear any other questions from Dr. Week, wondering what our recommendation is.
Madam Chair, while we're waiting for Dr. Vink, I do have some questions. Dr. Vink, did you have any questions?
I do not.
So David, on page 5 of your presentation, if we could go back to that. You see where it says federal projects? We have revenues, but we have a huge expenditure. We have a huge projected budget And then we have actual expenses, which align with the revenues. Can you speak to why there's such a large amount budgeted there?
Yeah, thank you for keeping me honest, because I glazed right over that, so I appreciate that question. Federal projects does have a large budget. This comes in the reason of a lot of different programs, including ESSER and timing and delay. There were budgets that were put in place for parts of ESSER that did not get rolled out in the previous year. And so the budgets are in there and were approved by you guys, or by the board, I should say, last year. So that is why you will see a larger budget in federal programs or federal projects, is because not every single thing that the grant was going to cover, where the monies actually got released by AE. For example, ESSER 3 was thought to have been rolling out at the end of last year and is just now rolling out because of delays. And as you guys well know, that's a large pot of money. And so we had already planned on starting to spend some of that money on different projects. And so they were budgeted until last fiscal year.
Okay, so this is a timing issue.
This is a timing issue, correct? Just on the budget side.
And so on page 4 of your presentation, you have a current year-to-date beginning fund balance of about $9 million. You have total revenues of $48 million, which speaks to your drop in revenue of 3.1, right? Which I believe is directly connected to enrollment/ADM.
Yes, a lot of it is connected to the ADM.
But you show a surplus of $852,447. Where did you come up with that number?
That number is the revenue. We brought in that $48 million of revenue, but we only spent the $47.9 million of the revenue. So that's the remainder.
So the 852,000, because you show, oh, I see. So it's actually 882,000.
Yes, sir. That was a typo on my
Roger that.
Yeah.
And so this is what we would normally call carry forward.
Yes, sir.
So this is, for the benefit of the board, this is a very lean year for carry forward. 4% would be roughly $1.4 million.
Correct.
So this is $600,000 shy from where we would normally be. And of course, in years past, we've shown greater carry forward than that,
That's correct.
up to, I believe, 4 or 5 years ago, about $5 million, right?
Correct.
So as we continue to decline in enrollment, we continue also to decline in ADM, and this is the impact of that.
That is correct.
Okay.
And as we dropped with ADM a few years ago, we found ourselves in a very similar spot of having a negative number for carryover. And so that this has turned it around enough to keep us moving forward in a positive direction.
Okay. And so, staying on the same page, the ending fund balance of $9,083,502, that's a cash balance, correct?
That is a cash balance, but that's from what I've been educated on, that is a cash balance that only affects our tax levy. And is not a true tax, or not like we can't go to the bank and withdraw the $9 million in cash today.
Right. This is a celebration to our community, paying the taxes.
Correct. Correct.
All right. Those are the questions I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Norris.
No problem. Thank you.
Do we have a motion to approve the fiscal year 2021 annual financial report?
Jessica Bueno, so moved.
Thank you.
Roger Carrillo, a second.
Thank you very much. Let's see, we've already discussed. Does anybody else have anything before we move forward? Okay, great. Hearing none, Ms. Miriam, can we have a roll call, please? A roll call vote, please.
Sure. Carmen Trujillo,
Yes.
Jessica Bueno,
Yes.
Reggie Carrillo,
Yes.
Dr. Lisa Dink.
Yes.
With that, the motion passes. Thank you all very much for the presentation. Moving forward, I don't think we have anything for item E, so we'll move on to item F, board reports and requests. Anybody feel free to start. I do not have any at the moment.
I'm not too sure if this would be a request or, well, just a request in that we're thinking about the September 29th date coming up. I feel like the court is, I don't know, steamrolling or really trying to put pressure on us in terms of making a decision that may be coming from the state leader. But that result was supposed to release, we were expecting that last week. But we haven't got the court decision on the mask mandate or not. But I just want to be prepared if whenever that decision comes out, that we have a plan after September 29th, or if we need to have that emergency meeting to work through that plan once it is released, that we are prepared to do so as a board.
So, Mr. Carrillo, the governing board took advice of legal counsel. And at the time, it was under the auspice that what is happening September 29th was happening in the moment. My recommendation is to stay the course, stick to the plan. It would not be my recommendation to make any changes to the plan at this time. I think we need to stand fast and hold firm. We know that masks work to protect the community. And so I appreciate the board's strength and vision as we continue to move forward. But we have made a statement with some option, but I don't see legally a reason to make any change to that plan at this time before or after September 29th. We have strong support from our community, we have strong support from our staff to stay the course. I've been telling people in and around the district that we're going to hold fast and stay the course. And your support in that is very much appreciated.
Thank you. I'm fine with that, and that's very refreshing to hear. Thank you, Dr. Weeks.
In alignment with that, I would like to hear from Healthy Verify. Just, I guess the request would be for an update from them regarding how our mitigation is going, given the data we have with pool testing and quarantine numbers. Just some validation from them would be great. I had one other request, I think, a board update on the progress of our equity plan, please. And then information, and maybe this was from Mr. Quintana, regarding the lighting in our buildings and whether they are all currently fluorescent, and the potential to transition to LED if that is the case. And then my final request was just to find out if coming up to parent-teacher conferences, our staff had been directed to provide pool testing consent forms or links. I believe some of our parent-teacher conferences are happening virtually during those parent-teacher conferences. That is all.
Dr. Rink, we're going to get that information out to you and to the whole board. We like to provide that information to the whole board when it's been asked in the meeting. And the good news is Mr. Tom is already working on what we might do for fluorescent LED lighting. Dr. Rink, to your question, the majority of our internal lights are fluorescent. We have some LEDs on the outside and then some of our exit signs and things, but the majority of our lights in almost all of our buildings is fluorescent.
Thank you, Dr. Weeks. I'm glad to hear that that's already being considered.
So, Madam Chair, members of the governing board, this is out of order, but I thought I heard somebody say something about future board meeting dates. So I'm gonna jump on that and just let folks know that I'll be out of town for about 2 weeks. And that includes the 14th. So I may not be able to make the October 14th date. And I know Dr. Gonzalez you're gonna be out of the country. So I don't know that I have a really solid recommendation. My hope is that I'll be able to call in. But I will tell you that in more than 26 years, I've never missed a board meeting, ever, right? So it's not really part of my DNA to miss board meetings. But the board might consider moving the October 14th date to the 21st, which kind of jams up our October 28th meeting, to be sure. But that would be, that would be me asking for some flexibility there. So just maybe some discussion from the board.
Dr. Weeks, what is the study session plan for the 14th? Do we know?
Slotted for ASU Prep in kind, their annual report. And I believe Mr. Quintana was going to talk about pathways to success to provide the board and the community an update on that. And there was something else. That was it, just those 2 items?
Yeah, just those two.
So personally, as long as those topics can be pretty fully covered and Mr. Quintana is prepared, I'm okay with not the meeting.
I'm sorry, Dr. Reed, you cut out. Is that, just to confirm, you would like to keep the meeting October 14th?
Yes.
I'm just looking over the draft for October 14th. How does everybody else feel about keeping the meeting or moving the meeting?
I don't mind accommodating Dr. Weeks and Dr. Gonzalez to join us in our October 21st meeting.
Same, I don't mind accommodating either. Would you be here on the 20? Would you want to be here on Dr. Gonzalez?
We'll both be here on the 21st. In fact, all 3 of us will be here on the 21st. I will apologize to staff now because moving board meetings is a lot of work. Because now you're basically doing 2 board meetings in the same period of time. And you, Mr. Heo, for having to put up with reviewing multiple packets.
Oh, no, it's like, it's the table turn, because sometimes I know we've had to do that in the past where we're making a request, so I'm here, I'm not going anywhere. But I'm flexible for both days, so it sounds like most of the board is in favor of moving it to October 21st. Is that all right? Any follow-up, Dr. Bean? Is that okay with you, or are there barriers?
Oh, I mean, I am available. My understanding with Dr. Weeks was not that he was requesting it, but that he was letting us know that they wouldn't be there. And that moving it to the 21st would be difficult for staff and cabinet. So I was just, if that is the request, I am okay with it. Yes.
It is the request. I'll confirm with my colleagues here, Mr. Quintana, Dr. Gonzalez. Is this doable?
Yeah, it works for me very well.
So then we would have a board meeting on the 21st and another one on the 28th, back-to-back Thursdays. We've done it before, but it is, to Dr. Big's point, it is some heavy lifting.
Well, I will throw my request in there again about connecting with council to see if we could move some work study sessions to a Saturday morning, just as far as availability and mental clarity when we're all trying to push things through in a day. Sometimes 2 hours on a Saturday is an okay way to start a morning. It doesn't have to be all the time, but I do feel since we're going really in the great direction of accessibility, that it would be okay for our public as well to be able to participate. So that's one board request, but do we need to make a motion and change dates and all of those things that, to clarify, it is one work study session and one regular session board meeting.
So, Madam Chair, it's not agendized, so we can't vote on it, but I can take direction from the governing board.
Well, do I have to say any specific wording for that? But if
No, you just say, please change the date.
thank you, Dr. Weeks. Yes, please update the date of our next work study session from October 14th to October 21st, please. Moving on, I do have a couple of requests. The Saturday was one of them, just as far as a consideration. And then my other one would be since I'm learning so much, participating as the acting president, I would like to invite my fellow board members to participate in an agenda prep session with Dr. Weeks and I. So it'll just be one of us and another board member. We can figure out what the schedule looks like, but we meet the Thursday prior. So that way everybody can kind of learn, for future needs. That way we're all kind of on the same page.
I think that's a good idea.
Thank you.
And we would start that in November because Dr. Weeks is going to be here for October.
So Jessica, how about we pull you in first and then Mr. Video and then Dr. Pate?
We'll do a
We'll
Zoom.
get a rotation going.
Yeah, there's not too many more, but still it'd be good cross training. Thank you. Any other board reports or requests?
I would like to share, earlier we talked about our 150th anniversary celebration, and I just wanted to share, how important it is really for our district, the city, and the state for us to be recognized and really share all our contributions to the state and just the importance and significance of still standing after 150 years. And I just want to share that we are going through several different themes, including walking tours, involving our students, involving our community. And my personal favorite is that Dr. Weeks is going to shave his head and the 150th a number. So that one's my favorite. And I just wanted to share that we will continue to work hard on this and just to highlight all the significance and contributions that our institute has contributed. But that is, what I wanted to share with our community is that we're working on that and it's going to be quite the celebration, and I'm excited to involve all our community. Thank you.
Oh, and thank you, Ms. Plano.
It's on the record
You
now.
could almost just spray paint.
Okay, moving forward, goodness, we'll move on to item F2, future agenda items. Oh, I probably should have asked this in the other one, but I'll start Carmen Trujillo here. I'm looking to better understand our procurement process. So hearing our questions today, making sure our equity plan aligns with hiring and the frontliners who interact with our kids every day, and being mindful of those demographics. I would appreciate a work study session on understanding that process. I do plan to spend time with Ms. Monique myself, but just as far as administration and the board all being on the same page as to how that process works and how it aligns with our new equity plan, that would be, I think, really helpful for all of us moving forward. And that's all I've got. Any other ones?
Just to report, I just want to say thank you to Dr. Weeks and Miriam Johnson for sending out those council letters regarding the duplets. I read through the letter sent and I talked to some council members, so that's gaining momentum. And again, I just want to thank you for sending that out. And then I'll stop there, but thank you for sending that out and keeping consistency with our focus on addressing that issue.
Yeah, we're happy to do it. We're also happy to just keep saying over and over and over again that we are members of this community. And whenever we have an opportunity to stand up for the community, we'll do that. And I want to thank the governing board for maintaining that commitment because it's powerful.
Sorry to ask you again, Dr. Mink, but do you have any future agenda items? I just want to make sure, you know, you're not on mute and talking and I can't hear you.
I do not. Thank you.
Thank you. Hearing no more comments, may I have a motion to adjourn our board session this evening?
Jessica Bueno, so moved.
Reggie, can you my second?
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. With that, we'll adjourn at